America now produces more oil than anyone on Earth. More than Saudi Arabia. More than Russia. 13 million barrels a day, every single day. A record nobody in human history has ever hit before. So here's a question that should not have an answer. Why is America still importing 7 million barrels of oil every day from Canada, from Saudi Arabia, and from a country the president is currently threatening to invade, Venezuela? If America is the biggest oil producer on the planet, why does it still need anyone else's oil at all? This video exists because of you. Hundreds of you left comments asking exactly this question on our shale video, and the 90-second short couldn't fit the real answer. So here it is, the full thing. To understand why America still needs other people's oil, you have to go back 50 years. Back to the moment the United States made a giant billion-dollar bet and got it almost completely wrong. It's 1973. OPEC slaps an oil embargo on America. Gas lines stretch around the block. Drivers fist fight at the pump. And every American oil executive looks at the same chart and reaches the same conclusion. The cheap stuff is gone. The future of crude oil is heavy, dirty, sulfur-packed sludge. Sludge from Venezuela, from Mexico, from the Middle East. That's what the world is going to drink for the next century. So America builds for it. The Gulf Coast, that long stretch of refineries hugging Texas and Louisiana, gets rebuilt around that thesis, tuned specifically for thick, stinky Venezuelan crude. Engineers install giant pieces of equipment called cokers, massive towers built to crack thick, sulfur-loaded crude into useful fuels. By the 1990s, the U.S. Gulf Coast is the largest cluster of heavy crude refineries on Earth. 9.5 million barrels a day of refining capacity, all of it tuned for thick Venezuelan crude. It is, at the time, the smartest infrastructure bet in the energy world. And then chemistry happens. In 2008, an engineer in Texas figures out how to make horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing work together at industrial scale. Suddenly, America starts pulling oil out of rocks that everyone said were empty. The Permian Basin in Texas, the Bakken in North Dakota, the Eagle Ford in South Texas. Production explodes. 5 million barrels, 10 million barrels, 13 million barrels a day. There's just one problem. Shale oil is the opposite of what those Gulf Coast refineries were built for. It's thin, it's clean, it's almost zero sulfur. Beautiful, golden, light crude oil. What kind of crude do those refineries actually want to drink? Heavy, thick, sulfur-loaded. What does shale oil give them instead? Light, sweet, almost zero sulfur. The exact opposite. It would be like spending 40 years building the world's best espresso machine and then waking up one morning to discover that everyone in your house only drinks tea. $10 billion per refinery. 7 years to build. Times 100 refineries. The math doesn't math. $5 to $10 billion per refinery. 5 to 7 years of construction. There are over 100 refineries on the Gulf Coast. The math doesn't math. So America did the only thing it could do. It kept buying heavy oil from somebody else. Anybody else. Even when buying it became politically radioactive. Here's the part that most coverage of U.S. oil totally skips. Run shale through a refinery, you get a lot of gasoline. Great for sedans on a supermarket run. But America's economy doesn't run on sedans, it runs on diesel. Trucks, cargos jeeps, tractors, jets. Trucks moving freight across the country, diesel. Cargo ships in port, diesel. Tractors in farmland, diesel. Jets, jet fuel. Both come from heavier molecules. Heavy crude makes them. Shale doesn't. A barrel of Western Canadian heavy oil run through a coker can yield over 40% middle distillates. A barrel of Permian shale yields about 25%. America pumps 13 million barrels and burns 20 million barrels. Production is not the bottleneck. Composition is the bottleneck. So where is America actually getting its heavy oil today? The biggest source of heavy oil flowing into the United States right now is not the Middle East. It's not Venezuela. It's the country directly above it on the map. The Athabasca oil sands, a region the size of England, sitting on top of 170 billion barrels of crude, number 3 on Earth. The oil there is so thick that at room temperature, it doesn't even flow. Workers scoop it up with mining shovels. Through pipelines most Americans have never heard of. The Enbridge mainline moves 3 million barrels a day. Keystone, yes, that Keystone, pushes another 600,000. Total, 3.8 million. How does it get to Texas? Through pipelines most Americans have never heard of. The Enbridge mainline moves about 3 million barrels a day. Keystone, yes, that Keystone, pushes another 600,000. Total, roughly 3.8 million barrels. That single flow now covers more than half of America's heavy oil import demand. The most important energy relationship the United States has, and almost nobody could tell you the name of the pipeline that carries it. But Canada alone isn't enough. The Gulf Coast refineries can swallow more heavy crude than the Mainline and Keystone combined can deliver. And that's where the political dynamite starts. Venezuela, specifically a region called the Orinoco Belt. 303 billion barrels of proven reserves. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than Iraq, Iran, and Kuwait combined. The catch is, it's some of the worst oil ever discovered too. Extra heavy, extra sour. So thick it has the consistency of coal tar. So full of sulfur, it stinks of rotten eggs. Which, if you've been paying attention, makes it the perfect feedstock for the United States Gulf Coast. Before Hugo Chavez took power in 1999, Venezuela was the single largest supplier of crude to the United States. Every Valero, Phillips 66, Marathon refinery on that coastline, calibrated for Orinoco crude. Then politics happened. 2019, Trump's first administration hits PDVSA with full sanctions. 2022, Biden quietly issues a license to Chevron. 2024, Biden pulls it. 2025, Trump restores it. 2026, Trump publicly floats a military operation to take Venezuelan oil. None of which makes geopolitical sense until you look at a map of the Texas Gulf Coast. 9.5 million barrels of refining capacity waiting. So Venezuelan oil today flows mostly to China, sold at a steep discount because sanctioned barrels can only find sanctioned buyers. Meanwhile, the actual American refiners just sit there, burning Canadian heavy, praying for a thaw with Caracas. So where does this go? There are basically 3 possible futures. None of them are great. 3 options. Rebuild every refinery. $1 trillion in a decade, probably never. Lean harder on Canada. But pipelines are maxed and Trans Mountain now sends barrels to China. Or Venezuela opens up, sanctions relief, regime change, or the option Trump keeps publicly hinting at, military force. Politicians can argue about energy independence all day. Chemistry doesn't care about elections. As long as that refining capacity sits on the Gulf Coast, America is not done with Venezuela. The most powerful oil-producing country on Earth is also one of the most dependent oil-importing countries on Earth, both at the same time, forever. So how do you actually get exposure to all of this? I'm not going to tell you what to buy, but there are basically 3 categories that map to the 3 themes in this video. 1. Gulf Coast refiners. Valero, VLO, the largest pure play. 2. Chevron, CVX, the only U.S. major still in Venezuela. 3. Enbridge, ENB, runs the main line carrying Canadian heavy south. 1 ticker per thesis. Now, this is not financial advice. Nobody pays me to mention any of these tickers. Go read the 10Ks. Go read the bear cases. Decide for yourself. If you made it this far, you're the reason this video exists. The comments on the shale short, especially the long one about the diesel and jet fuel mismatch, Those comments wrote this episode. Keep doing that.